Build the Thrill race is about to begin.
Here come the lights.
Very excited.
Are you ready?
One lap of racing to decide the championship. As the crowd roar the drivers on to the final lap of this race. Gonna make the lunge down the inside.
Crazy, huh?
It's on to track 4.
First time ever, champion of the world.
This is Formula 1. I was born to be a winner.
Okay. Oh wow, a lot of people. Hi everybody.
Good afternoon.
So if you don't recognize us, I'm Julia. And this is Emily.
Nice
she
to
should
meet
be the
everyone.
one holding the trophy actually, but she was very kind to offer it to me for this particular moment. So we're here to talk to you about our partnership, which is young, but then feels like already has been something super amazing, an amazing ride. And you saw some of the content. I saw a lot of you taking pictures. We're actually quite pleased to see how much engagement we've seen so far, and that's what we want to talk to you about. But we've seen over 22 billion reach, which is pretty amazing, with very strong engagement. 2.5 billion social media reach to date. It's just amazing how many people are engaging with the content out there. And just a little fun stat, in March we launched a portfolio that we will show you. And just our Speed Champion cars, we're selling one every 2 seconds, which means that when this presentation is over, like 3 times this room is going to have a Speed Champions in their hands. So it's quite incredible, and yet people still sometimes ask, what is a toy doing with motorsport? So we wanted to start by talking about our brand journeys that actually brought us together, and I'm going to hand over to Emily to talk a bit about the amazing journey that F1 has been on.
Thank you, Julia. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for having us here today. I'm not sure if any of you know, Formula 1 is in its 75th season, 75th anniversary this year. We've taken a lot of initiative to make sure that people are understanding the history of the sport, but also where we're headed as a global brand. One of the big things we've been doing, and the reason why this partnership's so exciting for Formula 1, is how we're changing our demographic from this very hardcore, avid fan base. I think one of the fun stats I heard earlier today is a few years ago, 10% of our audience was over 90. That's definitely now not the case. So we have 24 races globally for those that don't know us. We have around 800 million fans worldwide and an audience each week of around 160 million people that watch Formula 1 annually. So we're super excited about where we're headed, but we can't do it without partners like Lego. So a lot of the conversations we've been having is, like I mentioned before, where our fan base was to where we've got to. Where we are now is that a lot of what we're doing is very, very targeted at the next generation of fan and making sure that we're engaging with them in ways that we haven't been able to do before. So super excited about Lego specifically, but you'll hear a lot about what we're doing, which is very much changing to this always-on 365 days a year strategy. And one of the pieces that we continue to explain is that we haven't been typically that accessible. And so when we're talking to third-party companies and who we want to play with, ultimately the likes of Lego, we want people to be able to touch and smell and feel Formula 1. So we'll get into it in a bit more detail around who else we're partnering with and the reason why. But that's where we're headed right now. Go to the next slide. So I talked about our previous audience. Where we are now is that 35 and under is really, really important. We have a completely diverse database, a lot of female audiences, which are great because for all the women in the room, we make all the decisions in the household. We spend all the money. And partnering with Lego has given us this incredible response to that particular strategy. A lot of innovation, a lot of being able to explain the sport comes from, like I said before, being able to touch and feel it. And what happened when we acquired this new fan base through Drive to Survive, which we never really understood until recently, was you have to keep them interested in different ways. It's not just about linear TV broadcasts, it's about experiences and making sure that people can feel it, access it, what have you. So we took our Drive to Survive audience and we said, How do we sell to you? Again, for those that don't know Formula One, we have been an IP rights holder, a licensing business by nature. We show up at race weekends that are operated by promoters all over the world. We don't really do anything except turn up with the cars until now. And so the approach of let's launch an exhibition that goes around globally and explains the history of the sport, to let's do F1 Drive. If those of you that are Tottenham fans have been to Tottenham, I'm not, I'm a Chelsea fan, but we have a karting school, a karting experience at Tottenham. We've just opened it in Las Vegas, which is very close to my heart, and we'll talk about that shortly. We also have F1 Arcade, which is completely exploding everywhere we go, which is sim racing for people so they actually can drive the track, sit in the car, feel it. And that's one side of it. Then the other side of it is partnerships like Lego, where we are in every shopping mall wherever you go all over the world. You would have heard or seen that we launched our relationship with LVMH recently, which brings Tag Heuer to the fold. Every shopping mall you go to, you see Lego now, you see Tag Heuer, you see t-shirts being sold. And again, very different to where we were before, but really it's because of partners like Lego that we've been able to access that and change the complete perception of where we are as a brand. So we're incredibly grateful. I'll stop talking because I feel like I just did for about 10 minutes.
You have an amazing video to
I
bring
do
it
have a
all
good
to
video.
life, and I never get tired of watching it, so we'll play it for you.
It's electric. There's so many big fans here. It's great to see people just having a good time.
This is the biggest crowd we've ever had here. Wow. The streets are dead. Everyone's here.
Who knew I was missing out on this all this time?
It's so tense and visually stimulating. It's mind-blowing.
Look at that engineering marvel. That's a marriage of man and machine.
Absolutely epic.
Awesome. I'm a huge F1 fan. Actually, I have a family of F1 fans, and we all support different teams, so it could get very ugly in our household sometimes. But Lego brand has also been on a journey. If you haven't noticed, hopefully you have, but we have really evolved over the last few years from being a childhood toy really just for kids to becoming really not just a toy, but an experience, and an experience that's loved by all. Now the portfolio and the brand spans not just children who are super important to us, and we are recruiting new generations all the time, but also adults. And actually our most highest growing audience right now is women. I don't know whether any women in the audience build? Yes? Okay. And man in the audience build? Good. I'm glad to hear that. And the reason for that is because we really see the brand as being much more than just a toy, and even much more as just a building experience. It's about creativity and imagination, and it spans everything: entertainment, gaming, physical experiences, digital experiences, immersive opportunities to engage in your favorite passion. And that is actually what has helped us to unlock so many audiences, by really understanding what are people truly passionate about, and by giving it to them in a super unique, immersive, accessible way. And that's also where the partnership with F1 came, because we have realized that F1 was becoming a massive passion point, and not just for men, actually for children, for women, and that is exactly what we are now seeing happening. But the way that we also build the brand is not just by engaging, not just by creating these amazing portfolio experiences, but as I mentioned, by also creating very immersive content that becomes cultural when Pharrell decides to do a movie that's in Lego bricks to tell the story of his life, content that becomes immersive and engaging for families like Lego Masters, which is the #1 unscripted show in most countries where it runs, content at Lego Fortnite, where we had Fortnite streamers crying when they saw Fortnite characters turning into Lego minifigs. And of course, we also see huge opportunity of what we can do together with F1. But before we go there, I just want to bring it all to life in a very short video for you.
Let's go. Take a seat, sit back, enjoy the show. Yo, let's go. I'ma start at fast and I'll take it down slow. Yo, let's go. Take a seat, sit back, enjoy the show. I'ma start at fast and I'll take it down slow. Gonna take you on a ride. Get up on my vibe. We're gonna go real low, then we'll go real high. Get ready to let go, feeling the crescendo. Gonna go fast, gonna keep up with the tempo. Gonna go real fast. Yo, let's go. Take a seat, sit back, enjoy the show. Yo, let's go. I'ma start out fast and I'll take it down slow. Yo, let's go. Take a seat, sit back, enjoy the show. I'ma start out fast and I'll take it down slow. Let's go.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about how our partnership comes to life. We truly share very similar passions. One of them is about inspiring new generations. We really believe that creativity, imagination, immersive experiences, it's not a prerogative or privilege of one particular audience. It should really be accessible to everybody. And that's what we also have in common in leveraging our partnership to do exactly that. The second thing is, and Emily mentioned this, is immersive experiences and storytelling. It's not just about a product. It's not just about a race. It's about everything that happens around it, physically on the ground, in a lead-in, and for viewers there at home and afterwards. But also, a lot of the stuff that we're going to show you now would not be possible if it wasn't for us also having some shared values on how we look at our partnership, because it's really not about what specifically goes by the contract. It's actually about, we've got a contract, but now it's really about innovation, it's about risk-taking, and it's about working together. And maybe to start, I wanted to ask Emily to talk about how we announced our partnership, how we launched it, because that was already a very good manifestation of these three things that I just talked about.
So Julia says a very good point. I see contracts as frameworks. I don't think that anybody should look at a contract and say, we're only delivering what the bullet points say. A lot of it is built over, time, relationships, and one of the things just to attribute to this particular relationship is, from the minute we all sat in a room, creativity was much more important than legal documents. And so I think it's what's generated so much hype and interest around this. There's the obvious point where the product is just absolutely incredible, and we've provided a platform for that product, which we'll get into. But I do think the fundamental takeaway from our perspective, and something we're now taking into a lot of our partnership conversations, is creativity first, paperwork second. And so, we're very fortunate at Formula One. Our bosses allow us to be incredibly nimble. Everything we do is based on the conversations we're having. It's not based on we're just selling at this point sponsorship traditionally around, visibility, advertising, hospitality, any of those things. It's about how are we actually answering the question and delivering it for the brand that we're partnering with. And not everyone is as exciting as Lego, to be honest, but we took it and we said, right, how are we going to run with it? So to Julia's point around launching the partnership, for those that don't know, I'm also the CEO of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's something I worked on from kind of day one during COVID, but that's a whole different story that I won't tell today. And so when we were talking about timelines, it was always a November timeline. And so obviously from my perspective, I was like, great, get to launch my new favorite toy at my favorite toy. So the reality is we had the Vegas platform to be able to do it, and giving Julia and her team the creative opportunity to launch as big and as bold and spectacular as we could. How else could we do it than the Las Vegas Sphere? If any of you haven't been to it, it's the coolest thing I've ever seen, other than the Vegas race and the Lego partnership. But outside of those things, being able to put what we did on the Sphere and bring it all to life and launch the product around that race was truly spectacular. We did a ton of teasing beforehand. People were starting to kind of figure out what we were doing. And then we went out with this big bang. So I think we might have a little bit of a video to show you.
Yeah, and Sphere is quite amazing, but I tell you, when I landed in Las Vegas and I was driving to the hotel and I saw this, it was actually quite incredible. So we wanted to play it for you. That was the work of a very talented creative team working on this. It was just quite incredible because it ran for all 3 days during the Grand Prix, and just to see the drivers racing while you have these massive minifigs looking over them, that was quite a moment.
I think they were quite distracted by what was going on the Sphere.
And what actually surprised us a lot is when we launched this, at how engaging this content actually was. It was number 2 most engaged Instagram. The number 1 was Max Verstappen cinching his championship. So it was, pretty good. Amazing coverage, like literally overnight, 6.4 billion views. We had this on. And of course, it was an introduction into the novelty portfolio. And I'd like to talk a bit about that. Because we launched exactly the day before the race started. We launched the whole portfolio. That was the purpose of this big launch, is to reveal what we were going to bring to life. And you see the examples, the portfolio here, and you could see from what I talked about and what Emily talked about, we really span all ages, from little kids to collectors, to people who really want to build sophisticated, more big-sized cars, but also kids who want to play out what actually happens at this pit stop or how the driver prepares for the race, and then, of course, the historic Santa car. The thing to mention here is probably to talk a bit about Speed Champions, because what is really unique about our agreement, and I think it's first of its kind, is that it's a Concord agreement, which means that we have rights to all 10 teams. And we were able to bring this type of a collection of Speed Champions to life, that despite the fact that these cars are quite small, they actually are each very unique and designed to be consistent with the team's car, not just with the sponsorship, but also with the chassis, with the shape. Our designers work with the engineers of all 10 teams to actually bring that to life. But to get the Concord agreement done must not have been easy, because you have to get all 10 teams to agree. So Emily, a few words on that.
never easy when you have lots of partners that you're trying to keep happy, but ultimately when you take them a product like this, it's hard for them to say no, right? Not just the fact that Lego have gone into the attention to detail, whereby, to Julia's point, the chassis, the sponsors, everything is exactly as it is on a car. And that actually required a lot of behind-the-scenes work of stuff that Formula One, as the rights holder, was not allowed in the room, because these are team designs that are incredibly competitive with each other. So we stayed out of that part of this conversation for obvious reasons, but getting them all to open up so that you can actually and authentically say this is a true replica of a Formula One car was part of the conversation. And for those, again, that aren't familiar with our sport, the regulations will change again in 2026, which means that Lego have to go through that entire process all over again for a 2027 launch.
Really looking forward to it.
It's one of those points where it's so authentic, and we take that really seriously. If we were just creating these model replicas that weren't actually what they need to be, but without the 10 teams coming on board as a 10-team deal, it would have been really hard to implement. So kudos to the actual product, because I don't think the teams would have been as excited if they were just replicas and they weren't as bespoke as each of them were.
And luckily, a lot of engineers and even drivers are massive Lego fans, so they like building the cars, so they did all come to see it. We were super happy with the portfolio. It was the first indication that, at first the content, then the portfolio, it was on back order. We offered some pre-orders, and it was on back order almost quite immediately in the US and Europe. So it was quite amazing to see. And of course, people started to ask us, so what's next? What else are you going to do? How are you really gonna pay off what you're promising, which is immersive experiences and entertainment and sparking creativity and imagination? And that's when we started to talk about Miami Grand Prix. So that was a very interesting discussion, because I'll tee it up a bit, and maybe you go with, I'd love for you to talk about how your team also, took that in. But the idea came quite quickly, but remember, we only launched the partnership 6 months ago, and Miami was happening like literally 6 months later. But we were sitting around the table and kind of thought, okay, we had done a life-size car before, so why don't we do Lego life-size Formula One car? And then, why don't we do all 10? And then why don't we make them drivable? And at that point, Emily said, why don't we do a parade? None of that is, as we said, in legal contracts or frameworks or anything.
This was definitely not an illegal contract.
So how was that?
Yeah, I mean, to Julia's point, again, you come back to the creativity and the relationship and how we built that in a really short amount of time, but obviously you've got two different businesses that are trying to hit this completely different audience from our perspective, but also strategically partnering with them to come up with these types of ideas. Who else is going to build us 10 cars that have 2 seats in them that can move? And so we had plenty of conversations, and I think up until I saw the cars move, I didn't quite believe it was going to happen, particularly if anyone was in Miami. There was the rain of all rain about 20 minutes before the drivers' parade, so we're all sitting there. But the best part about it, from my perspective, is that no one knew what was about to happen. We had the cars in a garage all weekend, lots of media were taking pictures, everyone was assuming it was another Lego big build. When they started to come onto the grid, everyone went, oh wow, these guys are nuts. And we did it, and it was an incredible 20 minutes. I think we were all watching, kind of praying that the drivers got round, and I think we might have another video to show you. But the fundamental part of all of this was how much the drivers actually enjoyed doing it. They were crashing into each other, there was Lego all over the track. I was getting phone calls from Mr. Domenicali, our boss, saying, I hope you've got a plan to clean this up. And so what came from it was just this viral content because of how authentic it was. I keep using that word today, but I think it's so important. The drivers just loved it, to the extent that I think Lewis came out and said, this is the best drivers' parade we've ever had. Again, if people haven't been to a race, a drivers' parade is part of our programming every Grand Prix. We typically put them in a truck, which now, upon reflection, is never going to probably happen again. So it's, again, coming up with these ideas to engage with our ecosystem in such a way that has gone completely viral, but also everybody can enjoy it. This isn't something that only a hardcore motorsport fan can accept, enjoy, what have you. This is something that has just gone completely all over the world, and we now have a list of Formula One race promoters asking what our next big idea is. So, Julia, any ideas?
Let's talk a little bit about the cars before we show you what actually happened on the track, if you haven't seen it already. So behind me, you see what was actually happening for us to build these cars. It took 28 very talented designers and engineers in our factory in Kladno. It was a massive engineering feat to figure out how to actually create drivable cars that will fit 2 drivers. They are built all with Lego bricks, 400,000 bricks plus in each one. Each one weighs a ton. It's quite amazing because there's no stickers on it, and yet the sponsors, all of all the branding, everything that's on the car, it's built out of Lego bricks. It is quite authentic. So these cars traveled to Miami with about 10 people from Kladno. They were under embargo with media, and then we revealed them in the garage, as Emily said. And the first time we saw it, I think we both cried. It was quite amazing.
I'm very emotional.
So everybody who was there was actually, quite amazed. But like Emily, I was also, first we were praying for the weather, so the sky had to open for us to actually be able to get on the grid. But secondly, just to ensure that they're drivable, that nothing happens and that they drive. Nobody expected to see what actually happened when we put the drivers into these cars. So we'll show you now what happened.
Back when F1 didn't build cars at the Miami Grand Prix, they built a blueprint. 10 life-size drivable Lego F1 cars. This wasn't a collab, it was a takeover. Now, collab cousins, is this a new playbook or is it really only for Lego?
There's about 440,000 pieces that put together this car.
440,000. This feels better than the real thing.
That was the most fun drivers parade we've ever had.
What was your favorite race of the day here in Miami? Oh, without a doubt, it was the Lego race. That was awesome.
So this content went completely viral. Of course, we told the drivers not to race. And these cars can only drive up to 20 kilometers per hour. But of course, that's the first thing that they did when they got into the cars. They started racing. And the cars were pretty destroyed at the end. Not everybody made it all the way back, but we'll show that to you in a sec. But what that created was something that we never expected. We didn't expect all of this engaging content, and we didn't expect that people will see the side of the drivers that they had never seen before. They were laughing hysterically, they were joking with each other, they were having a really fun moment, and that's how play came into sport in the most unexpected way. So, you could see some of the comments, and we were seeing them overnight, and actually, just looking at the stats here, both on our own engagement platforms and F1 engagement platform, this is by far #1 piece of content. It was just incredible how much interest it garnered, and people are still talking about it now. How was it for the F1 team? How was it for you on the receiving end?
The problem for us is now everyone's like, so what's the next big idea? You're like, still reeling off Miami. Like, come on, guys. But I think it's just set in motion exactly what I said at the beginning of this conversation around how we're evolutionizing our platform. Obviously, the heart of our sport is always going to be racing. As much as we're evolving into this lifestyle brand, and the entertainment more broadly is really, really important for us to engage this fan base. The fact that the drivers were so into it and the teams got so behind it, I think, is the recipe for the success. So from our perspective, like, Lewis, and I've said it a minute ago, the fact that he's publicly saying this is the best drivers parade ever, it's making us push our own boundaries into what's next. And couldn't have gone better, apart from, like I said, and we'll show you some of the wild driving. Some of the drivers didn't get round, but they were all just having a blast, and I think that's what it's all about.
And I would add to that, I think it also speaks very much to what we intended to do in the first place, which is, use creativity and imagination to unlock, new experiences for our audience. And we live right now in a world where so much is digital, and you'll probably you're hearing here a lot about technology, digital, AI. This is just about the possibility of one small brick. This is about the possibility of having a vision, being bold, not being afraid of what might happen, but actually going for it and actually making it happen. And I think that's what this is why this was such an important moment, both for the audiences out there, but also for us as partners.
I will acknowledge that we didn't have a wet weather plan. So you can have these big ideas, and I do remember saying to the team, why didn't we think about rain? And they were like, but we're in Miami. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when it was raining, we were all sitting there. Well, I was super nervous. There's some people that were sort of like, things will be okay. I was super nervous about the rain and, what's going to happen. And then there was like we were thinking of, plan B might be the drivers get into the car, but they don't drive, and plan C might be something else. But Emily is right. At the end of the day, we only had the plan A, and thank God that it worked. A few lessons from this, a few key things to kind of to finish on. I mean, I think getting this totally organic, engaging content, that's not something that you plan on. But I think it is a very important lesson of how to create an experience that truly feels authentic and truly feels like, it was intended to deliver play, it was intended to deliver fun, it was intended to deliver a great moment. I think that was one, big piece of learning for us. And I would say the second thing is about making it really authentic. I mean, even when the cars were just in the garage, it's such a feat of engineering and creativity, using a small 2x4 brick to bring it all together like that, and then making it drivable. I think that just in itself was very, very important. And I can tell you that all of our designers who worked on it worked very closely with the F1 team. They are super fans, and they wanted to make the cars as authentic as possible. Obviously, they have 2 seats. But other than that, there's so much attention that was paid to the detail of it, and I think that also added to the whole experience and to what the drivers really got into.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, imagine the rubble on the track if we had had 20. It would not have been good. But I think just to kind of wrap it up a little bit here, I think where our biggest belief in this relationship just keeps coming from is investing in brand building. Obviously, you have 2 quite well-established brands that are continuing to just push boundaries and try and be groundbreaking. I know that every sport, every major IP is in a similar position, but it comes back to our ability to be nimble, our ability to serve as this purpose of like doing things first. We're consistently being told to think big, and so thinking big in this respect was quite a fun little project that Julia came to fruition. So, I think creativity has no limits, as you're all probably learning over the course of this week here at this conference. So, yeah.
One of the things that we also picked up on is new audiences. So we know from the data that we see that a lot of people that engaged on our own platforms were actually not previously F1 fans. And that's really amazing to see. We also know that many more kids became F1 fans due to engaging with this kind of content. But vice versa, we're also bringing new audience to the Lego brand, the real F1 fans and people who just noticed it and it raised their awareness and their interest in the whole portfolio and everything that we're doing together. And the last thing to say about this is really to go back to the risks and unknowns. Like that's probably the biggest thing that makes all of this possible is, when you hear a big idea, it's just to be able to say, how do we make it happen, and not what are all the reasons why you should not make it happen, or what all of the things that could go wrong with it. It's that kind of a mindset. And honestly, you know, when the drivers came off of the track, and it was like, you know, 1 hour or two, you know, 2 hours before the race, and it's like there's a lot of Lego debris out there that you have to clean up. But it was fine. It got cleaned up, and it was okay.
It was not fun, but it's okay.
Well, the race still went on.
I'm teasing.
I think that the one big thing, was it not fun?
I'm teasing. The other fun part of all of this is what you're seeing is all of the big stuff. I was being sent, I wasn't in Barcelona at the weekend, but I was being sent photos of the Paddock Club, which is our premium hospitality offering in Barcelona. And we had Lego flower walls, and in our motorhome we had Lego bouquets. Like, Lego is truly taking over the sport. It's incredible. But people are loving it. You know, these Instagrammable moments, these photographic moments, things that we hadn't done in the sport before, obviously is now everywhere. And it's like people are sending me pictures or, you know, things off social media going, were you in the meeting room when they decided to do Lego flower walls in the Paddock Club? I was like, well, yeah, but, you know, this whole thing is just starting. And I think the fact that we've done this in 6 months and how much opportunity there is to continue to evolve it, make it bigger, better, bolder, to Julia's words, is what's keeping us engaged and excited. So if anyone has any good ideas of what we can do next, we're completely open. We want to hear from fans around what some of these ideas are. So if anyone has any tips, we'll send you our email addresses.
So we wanted to thank you for being an amazing audience. And in case you did not see this particular piece of content, we wanted to leave you with this. So Lewis Hamilton, he was not driving, Charles was driving, so Lewis had a camera, and he actually did a recording of his own view of the driver's parade. So we took a snippet of that so you can get a sense of why this content is so viral. Because imagine Sir Lewis Hamilton, 7-time champion, doing this just because he wanted to and he had a great time. And now?
This maximum speed. This is maximum speed. Maximum speed. Oh, yes. Good ride.
You have fun. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Amazing.